Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition reviews are in, and the GOATs at Monolith Soft have done it again. The open world game that inspired Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom comes in at a full 4 points higher than the original Wii U release, with an overall Metacritic rating of an 88. Let's talk about it. Monolith Soft wraps up its Switch era with another banger and cements themselves as the unanimous MVPs of the Switch generation. Xenoblade Chronicles X, outside of the Zelda games, is the last of the most desirable Wii U games that are no longer stuck on that system. It was definitely my most hoped for, most wished for game to come over from the Wii U to the Switch. So I'm so happy to finally have that available on the Switch, and that it now has a chance to truly find the audience that it deserves. And now we have access to every single Xenoblade Chronicles game on the Switch. Xenoblade Chronicles 1 Definitive Edition, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Torn of the Golden Country, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Future Redeemed, and now Xenoblade Chronicles X, the Definitive Edition. And to answer one of the most asked questions when it comes to the Xenoblade franchise, yes, you absolutely can 100%. Xenoblade Chronicles X is an excellent starting point for newcomers to the series. You don't need to know what happened in 1, 2, or 3. You can just play Xenoblade Chronicles X and enjoy the world and the story on its own. Now, I do have to mention, by all accounts, its story doesn't have quite the same impact as the number entries in the series, but it still has a good story, and the Definitive Edition adds about 20 to 30 hours of additional story content. But let's talk about these reviews. At the time of this recording, there are 50 total reviews. All of them positive, not a single mixed or negative review. As of right now, there are 5 scores of 100 or 10 out of 10, 23 9 out of 10s, and 22 8 out of 10s. Let's start things off and talk about some of these 10 out of 10 reviews. So Nintendo Life, Tech Radar Gaming, Gene Park at the Washington Post, which that was like the review that I was really looking forward to seeing. If you follow him on Twitter, he's been spreading the Xeno hype, and it's just been really cool to follow his journey through the game again and just kind of seeing him fall in love with the game in real time. So we'll get to his review here in a second. Inverse and Destructoid, they all gave Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition a 10 out of 10. So let's start things off with what Nintendo Life had to say. And they say Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition is an expertly crafted revamp that gives us all the bells and whistles we could wish for in terms of graphical upgrades. However, it's actually Monolith Soft's attention to clever gameplay revisions that impresses most here. This is X, streamlined and modernized, carefully recast and reset in order to play better than ever. Additional characters, a new ending, and all that snazzy stuff is all well and good, and fans will be excited by the fresh revelations that occur, but it's in how everything flows so much better now that we reckon the hardcore will find themselves most impressed. And for newcomers, a recommendation is even easier. This is up there with the all-time great sci-fi RPGs and an absolute must-play. Absolutely glowing stuff from Nintendo Life. I want to talk about those graphical upgrades here for a second. Right now we're looking at a graphics comparison thanks to Game Explain. Definitely check out the full video. It will be linked in the comments, but just looking at the game, it looks so much better than the Wii U version. Just the way the characters look, the resolution, the colors, everything just pops when you look at this game. So I'm really excited to just take in this world visually. All right, but let's keep going here. And I want to highlight a few things that Gene Park of the Washington Post that he said. So first, he says Xenoblade Chronicles X was created during an era when open world games were literally pushing the boundaries of video game content. Bethesda Studios' Skyrim in 2011 was a critical and commercial success. Monolith Soft noticed that Japanese developers were not as enterprising and wanted to match that ambition with the Xenoblade series. The world of X is at least 10 times larger than Skyrim, and in exploring it, the literal sky is the limit. One of the coolest things about Xenoblade Chronicles X is, come on, there are mechs. You get to pilot a mech in this game and use that to explore the world. And flying around in the mech, exploring the world in a mech, it all looks so cool in Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. And he goes on to talk about one of my favorite things about the Xenoblade series, and that's the battle system and your relationships with characters. He says the battle system is representative of the entire game experience, full of knobs and toggles and switches to tweak. Open world games are often described as sandboxes. X is a sandbox of systems, letting players become as powerful as they want with any weapons or robots they want, paired with up to 22 endearing characters with stories told through a complex web of quest chains that require attention, especially because the wrong dialogue choices significantly changes outcomes in many stories and character fates. I love hearing about the freedom that there is to explore with the combat system, and I really love it in RPGs when your choices matter and can impact the story of the games. And then finally, he says there's poetry in the Switch ending its life with the Wii U title that inspired its first big hit. So yes, if you don't know, Xenoblade Chronicles X is pretty much what inspired the open world and how that was handled of Breath of the Wild, which Monolith Soft had a hand in helping to create. And we all know how legendary Breath of the Wild went on to become, but it's really cool now that their game that kind of laid that foundation in Xenoblade Chronicles X now gets to be appreciated by a receptive and thriving audience on the Switch. But finishing up with what Gene Park said, he said, beyond that, I've spent 170 hours of the past month playing what's become one of my favorite gaming experiences of all time. And before we move on to the 9 out of 10s, what would make you my favorite of all time, make you a 10 out of 10. If you're enjoying this breakdown and you're excited for Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, is if you would hit that like and subscribe button. All right, let's get on to the 9 out of 10s. So we'll start things off with Nintendo's that gave Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition a 97. They say it is the best version of one of the best RPGs ever. With a lot of substantial improvements, new content that fans will enjoy, and a world of large dimensions, we are facing a must-have gem on Nintendo Switch. A game that you have to play if you love the genre, as well as an outstanding swan song for the hybrid console. And so let's talk about that for a second here. Yes, Xenoblade Chronicles X is, at the moment, is definitely serving as the perfect swan song for the Switch. At this time, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition is the last Nintendo published Switch game with an actual release date. Right now, we know about Metroid Prime 4 and Pokemon Legends ZA, but they don't have a release date at this time, and there's a lot of speculation that those two games may have Switch 2 versions, or at least maybe Switch 2 upgrades for those games. So at this time, as we're waiting for the big Switch 2 reveal at the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition is the game that we have to tide us over until we get taken over by the tidal wave of hype for the Nintendo Switch 2. Up next, we have Hobby Consolas with a 93, and they say if it was already a special game on Wii U, now, thanks to all the changes, new features, and above all, the epilogue, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition is also one of the best JRPGs on Nintendo Switch, which is saying a lot when you think about all of the classic RPG experiences that we've been able to experience on the Switch. And then we have Siliconera with the 90, and this speaks to why Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition is 4 points higher than the Wii U version, and that's simply stated as Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition feels like a stronger game on the Switch, and quality of life adjustments make it more enjoyable. And for our last 9 out of 10, we have IGN that says Xenoblade Chronicles X was already one of the Wii U's best games, and this definitive edition has escaped the destruction of its old home like the white whale and settled down nicely on Switch. The quality of life improvements here are enough to justify another trip to Mira alone for veteran players, and it's the perfect opportunity for newcomers to explore its beautiful landscapes for themselves. Its combat systems are deep and engaging, and the massive open world never got old to run, jump, or fly across. Its main story may not quite live up to the standards of the series, but a likable cast of characters and plenty of compelling side missions mean Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition is still an adventure worth writing back home about. And that part right there seems to be one of the main things that the reviews want to highlight, that even though story-wise, like I said, it may not be as impactful as the numbered entries in this series, its side quests have some really good writing and story moments, and that you'll love the cast of characters that you spend your time in this world with. And that's always been a strength of Monolith Soft, and the memorable cast of characters that have been across all of the Xenoblade Chronicles games. All right, now let's talk about some of these 8 out of 10s. And up first, with a score of 88, we have Nintendo, and they say Nintendo Switch welcomes Xenoblade Chronicles X, the missing piece of the saga. An immense open world where you can lose yourself for hundreds of hours and enjoy an intense science fiction story that hooks you from the very first moment. And to add on to that, with the multiplayer in this game, I could see Xenoblade Chronicles X being a game that people will still be playing years from now, that they will be playing with their friends, going on missions, taking down monsters, going on battles. The replay value in this game is going to be immense. I am really excited to play some co-op missions with friends and take down some enemies together. And next up, with a score of an 85, we have COG Connected. And they say, I've had a difficult relationship with Xenoblade games in the past. They're enormous, unwieldy beasts that are weighed down with endless mechanical systems and floaty, disconnected combat. I don't agree with the floaty or disconnected combat part, but I can understand how the games can seem kind of complex if you just look at them as a whole. I do think that the games have done a good job, especially with the later games in the series like Xenoblade Chronicles 3, of really doing a good job of introducing the mechanics at a good pace where you are able to fully grasp one set of mechanics before moving on to the next, and just as you progress it just makes sense, and by the time something new is introduced you already know what you're doing. But continue on, he says, somehow all of this is still applicable to Chronicles X, and I still love it. The combat feels more grounded, the mechanics more approachable, and the plot is more accessible. Plus the custom outfits. Those really changed the game for me. Also, being able to pilot a team of mechs is a major bonus. Xenoblade games are still not for everyone. This is an opposing, enormous RPG series in every way, but against all odds, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition is somehow the one for me. And that's the line right there. Somehow, this is the one for me. Xenoblade Chronicles games may not be for everyone, but I want as many people as possible to at least give the games a chance. Try them out, and you just might fall in love with an amazing series. I've said before on the channel that the Xenoblade Chronicles series is my favorite. Like 1, 2, 3 are my favorite trilogy in all of gaming, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is one of my favorite stories in gaming of all time, and just one of the best stories that I've ever experienced in a game. And I would definitely love for more people to experience that game, and I would just definitely love for more people to experience the series as a whole and fall in love with the series. So if you are interested in Xenoblade at all, in Xenoblade Chronicles X, definitely give this one a try, and you just might fall in love with one of the greatest series in gaming today. All right, but let's take a look at some of the lower 80s, and we'll start things off with Eurogamer.net with an 80, where they say, ultimately, for all its changes and continued imperfections, I've had a much better time with X on this second go round than I ever did during its Wii U days. It still has some of the same problems as it did back then. For starters, as wide and varied as its main cast gets compared to other Xenoblades, they all still suffer from the same Octopath Traveler-like third wheel syndrome when it comes to cutscenes and major story beats. While some missions have certain party restrictions to help mitigate this problem, there are still plenty of moments where cutscenes featuring one group of characters will instantly cut away to who's actually tagging along in my party. Either that, or they'll be standing awkwardly off to the side, mute and non-responsive. It can't help but feel a little jarring in the moment, though I've also yet to see any RPG solve this problem effectively. They go on to say that it will be interesting to see if this revival sparks any further excavations into X's recesses, because if this definitive edition has proven anything, it's that X remains a rich and captivating vein of the Xenoblade Chronicles timeline, and it fully deserves to stand shoulder to shoulder with its numbered siblings. And last up here we have Vooks, also with an 80, And they say Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition is a worthwhile upgrade to the base game, bringing with it things that fans have wanted for a very long time. But it also leaves some of the game's more frustrating quirks intact in a way that feels a little bit like a missed opportunity. It's still a fantastic game, but it's hard not to feel like too much was left on the table when addressing the game's flaws. So it seems like they would have liked for Monolith Soft to do just a little bit more, which definitely would have been cool. But I imagine that Monolith Soft is knee deep with all the focus of all of their resources on their upcoming project or projects for the Switch 2. All right, but overall things are looking really good for Xenoblade Chronicles X, the Definitive Edition. Throughout the recording of this video, there have been a couple more reviews added, and the score is still holding steady at an 88. So there's a lot to be excited for with Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. It's one of my most anticipated games for this year, and it will be here soon. But what about you? How excited are you for Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition? Did you play it on the Wii U, or will the Switch version be your first time playing the game? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching. And for more Nintendo, Nintendo Switch 2, and gaming discussion, please hit that like and subscribe button. And until next time, I'll see you later. Have a good one. Peace.